Chain Drug Review, and Mass Market Retailers Video Forum. Brought to you by the Emerson Group.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Wolt. Today, we will bring you the second part of our conversation with Lynne Fruth, CEO of Fruth Pharmacy. She's going to tell us more about her battle with PBMs in West Virginia and how she convinced the state to make changes in the Public Employees Benefit Program.
We are really taking advantage of our public employees, a lot of whom are bus drivers, cooks, custodians, teachers' aides. These are not highly compensated jobs. It's our first responders, our municipal workers. So to put somebody where they have a $250 copay, in many cases becomes, do I pay for my medicine? Do I pay for my groceries?
How did you package that information and put it in a form that convinced legislators and the governor to take action?
Once we got this information in a way that we could, in an hour, explain it to people, I started with, after we met with public employees, their CEO or director, and got nowhere, the first person I met with was the Secretary of HHS, Cynthia Pursley, because I knew her from the past, and I knew her to be a principled person who would see the data and really have a mind for it, because Medicaid is under her purview now, and she understands that how much they've saved with the NADAC plus 1049. So I wanted to show it to her, and she was outraged. After that, I absolutely spent the next, Andy and I spent probably 3 days a week. We met with the Attorney General's office, Patrick Morrissey's office. We met with his deputy. They were very supportive. They wanted to look at it. Their role is to represent PEIA if there's ever an action, but they saw and understood. We met with the people running for governor. We met with the people running for Attorney General. We met with the U.S. Attorney. We met with the Treasurer's office. We met with the Auditor's office. We met with every senator, delegate, anybody, anywhere that we could talk to that would talk to us, and showed them this. Still very complicated, but a lot of, well, there's no spread in PEIA because they've told us there's no spread. So it's like we're just believing what the salesman is telling us without really auditing the facts. Mm-hmm. And so the one thing in West Virginia that was problematic is that Express Scripts, through their contract with the state, did not allow anybody to look at their data at a transactional level. And it was also in part of the West Virginia Code or law.
It's shocking, though, that the state agreed to those terms.
I don't think they knew what they were agreeing to. I don't think that, I believe that what was going on was that because of the complexity of this, they just trusted, like, we've hired the best consultant, and that best consultant is going to write an RFP, but that RFP is going to be written that only one of the big PBMs can win it, because it's all based on rebates and all this other stuff. And the PBMs are so sophisticated, and the people working in these roles are not, because it's extremely complex. And there was a big pressure from the governor over the last 4 or 5 years to we just don't want to talk about PEIA. We don't want to change anything because this is a big voting block. The teachers go on strike, and this is just off limits. Off limits. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. And like I say, we would rather keep doing what we're doing, which is wrong and wasting a lot of money, than admit that what we were doing wasn't good.
How did you go about convincing them to overcome that inertia?
So we actually meet with the governor's chief of staff, and I have all this data, which clearly shows the abuse, and it turns into a beatdown. But for the government to be so non-empathetic, just not care, it just made me mad.
It made you angry, and you decided to go public.
There were two people that were extremely instrumental in this happening. One was Marty Schladen, who is a political writer out of Ohio, who's done a ton of stories on PBMs. He's often quoted in the amicus briefs and the different circuit cases. Really smart guy. He picked it up, did a great article for us. And then the political reporter at WOWK, Mark Curtis, a veteran political reporter, met with him, showed him all the data, wouldn't give him the data, showed it to him, said, I want you to think about it if you think there's a story here. He called me and said, this is huge. And at the same time, there was a lobbyist who works for the West Virginia Independent Pharmacists Association, Matt Walker, who was trying to work the political channels and meet with all these people and explain to them why you should do something about this. And so we got nothing. We had several calls with Express Scripts. They connected us with Express Scripts. We told them what we thought we should be paid, and basically nothing came from it. And so the story breaks. Mm-hmm. And when it breaks, it goes statewide. We hear from people 500, Northern Panhandle, Eastern Panhandle. We're hearing from everybody about, oh my gosh. At some point in time, someone contacted the Speaker of the House, Roger Hanshaw, who's an attorney and a very, very well-respected, brilliant legal person. And he contacted me and said, I'd like you to come in and meet. So we lay this information out, and the people in this room are shocked.
Those officials were certainly right to be alarmed by what you told them. How did they respond?
Well, they did start a bill, but it didn't go anywhere. Now we are on the assault. I am going on the radio. I am going on TV. I've been at the Capitol. I went down and would set up my big table, and most of the time completely unauthorized. And I just went up there. I just set up my table. I would protest. I was having a one-woman protest, and I'm like, come throw me out, Mm-hmm. Got on TV, 2 radio stations, and now they're showing this stuff. Why are we charging teachers, bus drivers, policemen $250 for a prescription that costs $40? Like, that's wrong. This is shocking. Then I get on Hoppy Kercheval, national Metro News. And I just make it like from now until the end of the session, I'm going to be at the Capitol. I'm going to be here. You're going to have to walk by me every day, meet with the Attorney General, meet with all these people. And, I go back and say, we had a deal. You guys agreed to pass this legislation, and you're not keeping your deal. So no holds barred. Then we met with all the union leaders, the teachers' unions. We put out information to all the school teachers. We fax blasted every public school multiple times, like almost every day during that time period, with things that looked like this: fix PEIA now, call, here's who you have to call. And we would fax that out and say, have your teachers put it up in the lounge. Everybody needs to call. We did a Facebook and Instagram campaign with some really cute little graphics, very simple. And, so we went all in. And so it got out of committee, amazingly. Oh, now of a sudden it's out of committee. And now it's got to be read. So it gets read, and now we're to the last day. It's been read 3 times, and the word is they're going to pass it, but we're 2 hours before the session ends. And so, we're still doing all the outreach, all the teachers, everybody, radio, we're going on the radio every day, and we're just saying, why would anybody be against this? Why would anybody fight saving people money, saving the state money? This is a no-brainer. So at 10 o'clock on the last day of the session, as we listened to it live, it got brought up and it passed unanimously. So then it goes to the governor, and now we don't know what the governor's going to do, because he said for years, we're not touching PEIA, we're not touching PEIA. So then we went into so he had like 15 days. So during that last 15 days, it was a lot of radio interviews. And so he did sign it with no fanfare and nobody like us there to watch. But he signed it, and it goes into effect in July 1. The biggest thing about this, Jeff, is we get paid a little bit better starting July, but that's not what the bill's all about. The critical aspects of the bill are that they require the state to immediately begin an independent third party to do an analysis, a transactional level analysis of what is happening, and to come back and report that. That report has to be made public. All information has to be provided. And for the upcoming contract, it requires that West Virginia move to a transparent PBM, and it defines what a transparent PBM is. It defines what a rebate is, so that it is any and all money coming from the manufacturers, not this deal where CVS is sending it to Zinc and Zinc's pulling off half and then telling you that's the rebate, and all these shell games that are happening. And it requires that everybody's going to be paid the same. So I think in the end, it's going to be better for all pharmacy. This wasn't about Fruth pharmacy or independent pharmacy. This is about retail pharmacy being treated fairly.
Lynne, you deserve a great deal of credit for your courage and perseverance in making this happen. Let me ask you a final question. Does the light that you have shed on PBM practices make you more optimistic that pharmacy can secure broader reform?
Absolutely. Since we did our presentation at NCPA and people have heard, we've actually been contacted by people from about 15 states, and we're currently trying to assist them in how do you become your own advocate for pharmacy. And I will tell you this, I have believed for some time now that the federal government is so screwed up that it's going to be very difficult to get any meaningful reform done at the federal level. Mm-hmm. So if you think about what we've tried to do with DIR over the past number of years federally, it's like, a colleague of mine said, we get to the altar, but we never seem to get married. And I'm like, well said. But what happens in a state is that states can be more nimble. And we got a commercial bill passed in West Virginia that requires NADAC plus 1049. Our Medicaid moved to NADAC plus 1049. We got Ohio managed Medicaid to move to a NADAC-based reimbursement. Now we've got public employees. You're picking off some of the biggest payers that are going to allow pharmacies to stay in business. I think state public employee policy is the next big ground where we can win after Medicaid in the states. And you can bring enough public shame on the issue that people have to kind of step up, because these are their neighbors and their constituents that aren't being taken care of. So I absolutely think this is what's going to take. And it will be interesting to see. I know Kentucky passed something significant. Many states have passed stuff. And then it's not a 3-year rollout like you have with Medicare. Mm-hmm. And that, I've talked to the associations about that. If you get a solution today at the federal level, you're 3 years away from the first dime hitting your financials. And a lot of pharmacies won't survive that long.
You've certainly identified a path forward and done a service for the entire pharmacy industry. Thanks for sharing your compelling story with us.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I know it's been long, but I say it's a good story. And for once,
absolutely,
the good guys win.